Hey everybody, this is Marianna. I am a nurse and a mom, and I'm running for a state legislature in LD19. Hey everybody, this is Marianna. I am a nurse and a mom, and I'm running.
What's the problem? We got
I'm running for a state legislature in LD19. Shit open here.
What?
Hey everybody, this is Marianna. I am a nurse and a mom, and I'm running.
What's the
This
problem?
is fun.
We got
I'm running to see things out like crazy. I don't know what's the problem here. Shit open here.
What?
Hey everybody, this is Marianna.
Okay. We have. I'm gonna mute everybody.
This is fun. I'm running to see things out like crazy. I don't know what's the problem here. Hey everybody, this is Marianna.
Try it now.
All right.
Try it now.
What do we think?
Try it now.
Sorry about all the trouble, everybody. Sounds like we're not going to have too many more problems now. I hope you're still watching. This is Marianna Everson, and I'm running for a state representative in LD19. That is Southwest Washington. I'm a nurse and a mom, and I really think that healthcare is a human right. And I'm starting a series of videos about what we can learn from the pandemic. And the first one tonight is healthcare is a human right. I know that I come back to this subject quite a lot, but it's what I do, it's what I believe so strongly. And I know that right now, this is the thing that would make all of us feel a lot better. When something terrible happens like this, we have an opportunity to learn something new or be reminded of something that we learned long ago. And right here in this most horrific situation, in several generations of our world, there's many lessons to be learned. And for me, it helps me to move forward, feel less overwhelmed if I can break things down into digestible chunks. So in these live streams, we'll break down the lessons that we're learning today in order to ensure that we come out of this stronger, because one thing I know for sure is that we can never go back to the way that it was. So tonight, talking about guaranteed health care. Everyone needs care at some point in their life, and not one of us will get through this life without needing it. And if we're demanding free speech and to bear arms and all the rest of it, why have we not demanded the right to live? So I carry the stories of many people that I have cared for in different healthcare situations. I consider it my honor and my responsibility to carry these stories, to make connections between them, and to fight for what's broken. Some of my good friends are with us tonight to share their stories, and we need to hear these stories and make connections. When we hear these stories, you're gonna think at some point, that's terrible, because yeah, it's terrible. Uh, our for-profit system is terrible. Remind yourself while you listen to these stories that it doesn't have to be that way. I met Lisa in 2016 at a city council meeting in Hoquiam, Washington. We're both fighting to keep crude oil trains out of Grace Harbor. With a massive effort of a coalition of people, we get to tack that one up as a win for now. Lisa was active in the local Democratic Party and the ACLU, and she was a leader in the local chapter of the League of Women Voters. Lisa's been in this fight for justice for years to make this a place where everyone thrives. And I met Amy when we were sharing a tiny little office at the crisis clinic. We bumped chairs and shared one phone for over a year. And still, we work together to help people get through some of their toughest times. Amy's taught me so much about how to help people. And Amy is every day fighting for someone she doesn't know. And I met Alan at a Grace Harbor Democrats meeting. One thing about Alan, sometimes he's quiet and he's probably way more polite than me. But watch out, when he starts talking, the things he has to share will blow you away. Alan has a deep knowledge of history, politics, technology, sustainability. Name a topic, Alan knows something. And if he doesn't know, he'll research the topic and get back to you. Alan is someone you can count on. So please welcome Lisa, Amy, and Alan to the live stream. Lisa, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, a couple minutes, and then Amy, a couple minutes, just a little bit of background, and Alan, and then we'll go in that same order, and you guys tell your healthcare nightmare story. That be okay? So Lisa, go first, please. Just a little blurb about yourself. Oz, can you?
I've been.
There she is. Okay, thank you.
Oh, am I on?
You're on.
Okay. As Marianna said, I am an activist. I'm a community organizer, and I have been involved in the social justice movement for more years than I can remember. And I am absolutely passionate about justice for everyone. And healthcare is such an essential need to everyone's lives. And as Marianna said, whether you need it now, you're going to need it later. And it's abhorrent that in our society, our jobs control our healthcare. Healthcare should not be tied to employment. It's just ludicrous. And people stay in miserable jobs because they have healthcare and still pay an arm and a leg. Anyway, so I've been a homeless case manager. I've worked with survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. I've worked with marginalized populations, low-income folks, and that's who I am in a nutshell, I guess.
Nice. Next, we will talk to Alan. Alan, just give us a short introduction of yourself, please. 2 minutes?
Well, I've been interested in politics for most of my life just because it's fascinating. But I'm an old school Roosevelt Democrat. And as far as healthcare is concerned, it is a right. I see it as a human right. And the framers of the Constitution, the same people, well, it was Thomas Jefferson actually, who penned the Declaration of Independence when he said that we have certain unalienable rights, and among them are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in the letters that he wrote to James Madison and to John Adams and to all of those people, they write back and forth, and it was plain to them that understood in that was you have a right to seek care for an illness if you need it. And they didn't specifically say that you have the right to the hospitals and to all the kind of the care that you get, because it was medical care was different in those days. But it was obvious that that's what they meant, that healthcare not being a right is a complete anathema to those people. And so, of course, it's a human right. That's the way I feel about it.
Me too. And Amy, are you still there? We can't see you now. Did we lose her, Oz?
Yeah, she dropped off.
Looks like we did. All right, technology, we're getting there. So, Lisa, would you tell us your healthcare story, please?
Sure. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that I've lost so much in my life given what happened to me because of insurance greed. So I was just living my life. Everything was going along hunky-dory. I was living in my home that I was buying and involved in the community. And all of a sudden, I had to change insurance companies. And the new insurance company sent me a letter saying that they were no longer going to pay for medication I'd been on for years. And my doctor and my pharmacist were both pretty surprised and said it wasn't an inexpensive medication and they couldn't understand the reasoning. So I switched to a different medication, and I got increasingly sicker and sicker over a very short period of time. And what happened was my skin started blistering and peeling off from head to toe. And my doctor tried, he was wonderful, and he tried for about a week or a little over to figure out what was going on. And finally he said, "You've got to get to the hospital. This is where I want you to go." So I ended up going to St. Peter's in Olympia. And what I didn't know at that time was I was in really critical condition. My body was shutting down. I had a really high fever. And I found out later that they did not know if I was going to survive the ambulance ride up to Harborview in Seattle. The doctors, once I got to Seattle, they have the same concern that I was going to make it or not. I was finally transferred to the burn unit at Harborview, and my skin continued to blister and peel, and I was raw, and it was unbelievably painful. They would give me topical medication and morphine, and it wouldn't even touch the pain. I ended up getting transferred. The insurance company wouldn't pay for the medication that I needed to stop this from happening. And it turned out what it was a very rare autoimmune response. It's so rare that my doctor, who was the chief of staff of dermatology at Harborview, had heard about this but had never seen it in person. So it was diagnosed through a biopsy. So they knew what the medication was that I needed, but the insurance company wouldn't pay for it. So, and then the insurance company wouldn't pay for me to be in the hospital anymore. And I got the bum's rush, and I was sent to what I was told was one of the best nursing homes in all of King County. And they assured me that I would get excellent rehab and I would be able to return home once I got strong, blah, blah, blah. It turned out that the nursing home that I was sent to was one of the worst in the United States. From the moment I got there, I saw how horrible it was. And the care that I received there was, I don't even have words for how horrible it was. I ended up trapped there because I ended up losing my beautiful Victorian home to foreclosure. And I found out that I just recently found out that someone from the state who was supposed to help me get out of the nursing home had just arbitrarily closed my file. So I ended up being in that nursing home, which I called Hotel Hell, for just shy of 2 years. The state finally shut that nursing home down just this last February. They came in and shut everything down, and now I am in an adult family home because it's a better option than being in my car. The state is supposed to help me establish my own housing, but I've lost so much. While I was in the hospital, my home was burglarized, and I lost so many precious, sentimental, and valuable items. And I lost my beautiful home. And every step of the way, people were stealing from me, and probably all told, the things that were stolen from me were well over $10,000, and things that I should have had that I could be able to sell, so I could sustain myself slightly. I lost. I haven't been able to get any income established. So for the last 2 years, June will be 2 years, I've had absolutely no income. And I should say that once the insurance company finally paid for the medication, and my doctor, again, the chief of staff of dermatology, had to fight so hard to get the medication approved, and the insurance company kept falling through on their end of what they were supposed to be doing. They would promise that they would call at a certain time. They would have a phone appointment. They wouldn't call. They didn't return emails or faxes or voice messages, and it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks until my doctor finally was able to get somebody to have a conversation with, and he told them that if they didn't approve the medication, I could likely end up in the hospital again. So thank goodness for him, I was able to get the medication started, which was an infusion, and eventually this condition subsided. But it was a horrific experience, and the trauma, excuse me, oh, sorry. Oh, I apologize. The trauma of having been so ill, and the additional trauma from having been in such a horrific skilled nursing facility has really affected me. And I have PTSD as a result, among other things, and I just want my life back. And I absolutely lost everything. My neighborhood, my community. I haven't seen friends in 2 years. It's just been horrible. And all of this because of insurance greed. And I should add that I have additional health problems now that I never would have had if not for this illness because of their greed. So I suppose that's it in a nutshell.
So how is it that the can you elaborate a little bit more about how the insurance company made it the two ways, right? They wouldn't pay the medication for your chronic illness once you change. So why did you have to change to that health insurance? Tell us about what kind of health insurance you had when you were working and then how that changed. Will you please?
So I was working and I was paying a lot of money for my insurance, and I got hurt on the job, and I was a homeless case manager, and I was inspecting a property, and I was walking through a yard that had really tall grass, and there was a hole in the dirt that I couldn't see because of the tall grass, and I stumbled and I went headfirst into a chain link fence. And I broke my wrist in 2 places, and I hurt my head pretty badly in my neck. So I kept getting denied, through LNI, I kept getting denied treatment for my head and my neck injury. and I didn't know why. I got the um, emergency surgery on my wrist, and they would take care of everything from my wrist. So it wasn't until much later when I finally got cut off from LNI, and it wasn't until much later that I found out that the emergency room doctor put on the paperwork that I said I did not have a head or neck injury and that I had no pain. And this is an absolute error because I wrote on the report that I fell headfirst into a chain link fence. So all of this, I ended up losing my job and had to switch to Apple Health Insurance, to Amerigroup. And what I actually call Amerigroup, I can't say it in polite society, but Amerigroup has done so much to destroy my health and ruin my life. And I presume that the reason that they made me change the medication was because it saved a few pennies somewhere. And they wouldn't approve the medication to make me well. And then because the hospital was under such pressure, I'm sure, to get me out, the social worker sent me to the easiest nursing home to send people because this place was so terrible and they were desperate for anyone. So most of the patients there came from Harborview because it was just an easy place to send people. And as I said, and then once I was there, it took quite a while for the insurance company to approve the medication to stop the cycle from happening and my skin peeling off. But then once I was there, they kept denying me physical therapy, so I wasn't able to get strong enough to go back home, and that's the reason I ended up losing my home.
It's horrible. So for me, to kind of change it to a different way to thinking, okay, is that you are in the situation that you're in because we have a for-profit system. So if we had a non-profit system that guaranteed health care to everyone, like we can have, then the insurance would have never been tied to your job. You would have been covered 100% for everything all through the whole thing. There would have been no like getting approval for procedures or whether your LNI claim would be completely easy. Like you'd just be covered for the healthcare part. The LNI department would just be talking to you about your financial health, not your physical health, right? And
exactly,
you'd have gotten the care that you needed at the time that you needed it, and then you would still have your job, you would still have your house, or you'd have a different job that was better for you or whatever, but you'd still have what you needed. And almost all of the blame is because, in my head, is because we are allowing insurance companies to make billions of dollars off of us.
exactly. And I've lost everything as a result. I'm not even in my community. When the skilled nursing facility was closing, there was a 60-day notice, and the state didn't come in until about half the time had passed, so approximately 30 days or less. And they were rushing, trying to find places for us. And we were told that those of us who didn't have a place to go were going to be taken to the Harborview emergency room and left there. And if anyone is familiar with the Harborview emergency room, that is
insane,
unbelievable. Just being there is so traumatic. And I was terrified. And just a day or two before the facility was going to be shut down, they finally found a place for me to go, and I had to come sight unseen. And I am still 2 hours away from my community. And the isolation from all of this has just been horrible because I spent the last 2 years in a room,
right.
Whether it was my room at the nursing home or the room that I'm in here at the adult family home. And I said, I've just declined so much. My health has declined so much as a result. And it's all insurance greed. That's exactly what it is. And you're so right. None of this would have happened if if Ellen, if it was not for profit.
Right. Right. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for all the times you've let me share your story, and thank you for continuing to fight. Even in your worst times, you're still fighting for all of us, and you just touched my heart. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I will say that I was definitely a squeaky wheel in the nursing home, and there were so many horrible things that happened there.
Right.
And I like to say I had something to do with the place being shut down, and I'm so grateful that it was shut down before the COVID-19 got so severe, because I'm sure we all would have died there because it was such a horrible place. So thank you, Marianna.
Here I am. That's saying the thing. I'm saying the thing I told everybody that they were going to think and say. That's terrible. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
All right. Amy, you're up next. Will you, we had that technical difficulty. So will you just tell us a little blurb about yourself and then tell us your healthcare story, please?
I'm a mom of 5 kids. I work at Mark Reed Hospital. So last year I was officially diagnosed with MS, but I actually had it for 9 years, but I wasn't diagnosed because I had state medical. So they wouldn't do the testing I needed. The first incident I had was actually 9 years ago this month. I had my whole left side went numb. I had went into the doctor and they said, well, we don't know what's wrong with you. They did blood work. Blood work came back good. They said, well, there's no need to go to the hospital. Just wait and see if it goes away. Maybe it's because of your weight. Maybe it's this, that, a bunch of different reasons. I left crying.
Okay, sorry.
I called again and demanded to see a different doctor. And I seen a different doctor and still never got an answer. Why? It was my whole left side from my top of my head all the way down to my feet. And it was just like pins and needles. And that went on for several weeks. And then a few months went on, nothing. And then in July of that same year, I lost vision in my left eye. My vision was blurry. I could hardly see. I went to the doctor and they said I had Bell's palsy. And my blood work, the only thing it showed is I had a high STED rate. So they said there was inflammation, but they didn't know why. Still no testing. Didn't go away. So finally I went to an eye doctor, and the eye doctor did a bunch of tests. He said, your vision's fine. You don't have Bell's palsy. You have optic neuritis. And he said, I'm pretty sure you have MS. The doctor needs to test you right away. He wrote, and I have the medical records that he wrote that I needed tested, that he was pretty sure I had MS. Went back to the doctor and she said, because I didn't have, even though I had 2 different things happen, because I didn't have 2 at the same time, they weren't going to send me for an MRI because the state medical wouldn't pay for it.
Terrible.
So several years went on, different things. When I went to the hospital, no testing, until finally I went to Kaiser and was diagnosed within 3 days. So at this point, 8 years had went by, and I had 5 lesions on my spine and at least 20 on my brain. And the doctor said if I would have been diagnosed back when this first started, then I wouldn't have the ones on my spine. And he didn't even know how I was still walking. So I had to go right into infusions to keep from getting any more.
So what do the infusions do?
It suppresses my immune system so it can't attack itself. And supposed to have no more lesions or very few lesions while I'm on it.
Right. How often do you have to get the infusions?
Every 6 months.
And how much does it cost you?
Well, before I started at Mark Reed, it was $5,000 out of pocket every 6 months. Luckily now I don't have as much I have deductibles, but they're not quite as high. So it's costing me a couple thousand versus 5,000.
Okay. And then how's this affected having the immune suppressing medication to help your MS? How's that affecting your life right now with COVID?
Right.
With COVID-19?
Right now, I'm at a high risk because I only have half of what it does. It depletes your B cells, so it depletes half of your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
So that puts me at higher risk. Right now, I'm having to work from home, which is hard. But the doctor put me shelter in place, so I'm not even really supposed to go to the store or go anywhere because they don't know how my body would react to getting something like that.
Right. What about are there anything I don't even know this, but is there anything that you have to do differently with your family? Like, do they have to take special precautions or anything with?
Well, I haven't been able to see my 3 oldest kids at all,
Right.
because they live outside of the home. So, like Easter, my 17-year-old, because he mostly stays with my other son because he works in Aberdeen, and since he goes to work and everything, he's been staying there. So Easter, he had to sit outside. Couldn't even, he had to do the 6 feet, and so I haven't been able to hug my 3 oldest kids since this all went on. So
That's so
it's
sad.
been hard.
Yeah. Okay. Terrible. What, Alan? Sorry. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. I really appreciate it. It means so much.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
when I went to the doctor at Kaiser, like I said, it took 3 days. He got my very first appointment. I went in because my eye wouldn't stop twitching, and he said, "Right now, I'm clinically diagnosing you with MS." And within 3 days, I had an MRI and was diagnosed. And he said he couldn't believe that it took 8 years, and within 3 days, so all because I had state medical.
Yeah, because that for-profit insurance company that administers Medicaid, again, would not pay for things that you need.
Yeah.
Like happened to Lisa, right? Terrible. And they want to build up that Medicaid system. They want to do like a public option at the state level and give more profits to for-profit insurance companies to administer more Medicaid that doesn't actually help people. Great. Wonderful. Let's do it. No. Sorry. Alan, could you tell us your story, please?
Well, my story is pretty mild compared to what we just heard.
No, it isn't. Go ahead.
It was almost exactly a year ago. It was the first Saturday in February of 19, which I think was the second. I had a pain in my stomach area that it felt like gas pain, only the worst that you could imagine. And finally at night, in the evening anyway, about 7 o'clock, we went up to the emergency room, and they do what they do, and I take a blood test and all that kind of stuff. And I was sent into a treatment room, and there was some concern. Apparently, an emergency room doctor came in, and he had looked at some of the tests, and then I went down and had an MRI. I guess it's an MRI. It's where they put you in the big donut, and it goes around and it takes pictures of your insides. And had an ultrasound and all this. And then this long about midnight, the regular surgeon, Dr. Rowe, was notified. Let's see, I'm trying to think exactly how it happened. The nurse came in and said that he had rescheduled all of his surgeries for Sunday morning, and I was going to go in first at 7 in the morning for something. And finally, I was able to find out that it was my gallbladder that had gone kerflooey. And he came in. I was in the hospital for 4 days with recovery and everything, and he came in and said that it had broken and was spewing bile into the cavity and all of that kind of good stuff. And it probably would have killed me in a couple of days had I not done something about it. But the surgery was successful, but 4 days in the hospital, to make a long story short, ended up being $87,300 and something dollars. And I had state medical too, the Apple Care, Apple Health, whatever it is. And but it had lapsed a couple of months earlier, and I hadn't caught it. I didn't realize. So as a result, I didn't have any insurance at all, and got stuck with the whole bill. And I was able to petition for charity through the hospital, and that cut the bill in half. But you know, $43,000 something dollars is still, when you're working with now about $1,100 a month in Social Security. It's going to take 430 some odd years to pay it off, which doesn't seem to bother them. That, if you're paying something $5 a month or whatever it is, I guess they're happy with that. But that's another aspect of this problem, is that we shouldn't have no one, as Bernie Sanders had said many times, no one should have to go bankrupt just to keep from dying. And the other two people facing the same kind of a problem. And I had a little thing here that I wanted to read from somebody here. It's a very short little description of a problem they had. Very not similar to this one, but aligned with it. And it's somebody here on the harbor. And I got their permission to read this. It says, you know what happens when Zantac gets taken off the market for causing cancer? Everyone switches to Asifex. And I got a hole burnt in my stomach because the stock runs out and I can't get any. Well, I could get 20 milligram pills because they were in stock, but my insurance company won't cover the 20 milligram pills. They'll only cover the 5 milligram pills, which is out of stock. When I finally get it, now I'll be taking 4 5 milligram pills once a day instead of 1 20 milligram pill. This is why we need universal health care. And I thought, well, here's just another story. And the universal health care situation, the plans that are in the works, whole Washington, not the least of which, would solve a lot of that. And it puts the state in the role of the insurance company, so that's who takes care of everything. And a friend of ours, and you know who I mean, Marianna, who was on the hospital board, part of her job was to mediate between insurance companies and patients. And she had 170 insurance companies to deal with.
Right.
And with whole Washington, we would have one. And it doesn't even seem as difficult as a no-brainer. I mean, it seems even easier than that. So anyway, I'm going to be paying $25 a month to the hospital for the rest of my life. And I've gotten to know the pay lady there, who's the finance lady, whose name is Penny, which I still think is funny. And she's very nice, and they're happy to get their $25 a month. They know they're not going to get the money, but that shouldn't be a worry.
Right.
So, and I'm okay compared to Lisa and Amy. I'm doing great. I know somebody who is in advanced stages of MS, and it's not fun. And boy, God bless you, lady. All the best to you.
But no matter what our situation is, some situations are harder than others, and some people deal with things better than other people do. The fact remains is that we shouldn't have to do this. I mean, I was out. I blow my like the side of my head, like I think it literally blew off when I finally realized, I think 2015 or 2016, that every other industrialized country in the world has guaranteed coverage for every person that lives there, and people who visit there get coverage too. And we don't, because we allow corporations to make a shit ton of money off of us. It is insurance companies, but it's also hospital systems and medical supply companies, and all the people that get like a tiny little piece of the pie, and they get millions of pieces, so they make millions of dollars, right? And there's no like incentive to do it in a nice, humane way. It's only in a who can make the most money. That's the only incentive.
This is Lisa. I'll just chime in that once I left the hospital, and I was in the hospital a month, so it's almost been 2 years. June will be 2 years. So 2 years minus a month, I have been a commodity. Once I was in the skilled nursing facility, they weren't going to do anything to help me get out because I was money for them. And now I'm in an adult family home where they're getting paid over $6,000 a month for me to be here, which is unbelievable to me. My mortgage for my home.
If they give you half of that, you could live comfortably on your own. They just
exactly
$3,000 a month. You could have a pretty okay life, right?
Exactly. And even now, so once I came to this adult family home, I had to switch insurance companies. And suddenly I had to go, I didn't get on my medication. I'm on the phone with the insurance company. I'm trying to track down the doctor from the from the nursing home, hours and hours and hours on the phone. And it turned out that I had to go through the whole process of prior authorizations for some of my medications, even though I've been taking them this whole time, and the only thing that changed was a new insurance company. And it's just been a battle at every turn. Everything that I've been through in the last 2 years, having to fight for absolutely everything, from getting my medication and not another resident's medication, to having clean linens, to being able to shower, to get to doctor's appointments, to get food that wasn't going to make me sick. Every day in that nursing home was a struggle. And I thought once I got out of there, I would be out of their tentacles. And I'm not. I'm still, they didn't even send me my clothes when I left. It's just been insult to injury repeatedly over and over again. And all of this that I've been through, and all the trauma and all the hell, all because the insurance company didn't want to pay a little bit more for the one medication I was on. They wanted to save a few cents on another medication, and I've lost everything.
And they're spending more because of it.
It can happen to any of us. Any of that can happen to anybody. It's not like, you were what's the word? Predisposition. I can't even say. Yes, that's right. To do this, or that you are a terrible person and you abuse yourself or abuse your body, and somebody could try to use that against you, or you're a regular lady doing awesome work for homeless people, with a real life, with friends in a house. And I'm sorry, and maybe it's not nice for me to remind you all this, but just like anybody else, right? Just like anyone else, you were minding your own business, paying your damn taxes, doing all the stuff, and this happened. So I just really wanted people to, like, if anybody out there is watching, to just put yourself there. You're working, you got a car, you got, things, and then stuff goes down, and it can happen to any of us. And
did you call it, Lisa, did you call it a skilled nursing facility?
Yes, I use that term loosely.
Yeah, Wow. What a,
So the reason that it finally got shut down, it was on the list of the worst nursing homes in all of the United States. There's a Senate list, and there's 88 on that list, and this one was on it for almost 3 years. And the final survey that they did, where the state comes in, and every time they came, they had findings. But this last time, the report was 70 pages, 70 pages long of all of the findings. For the facility, and I was just recently able to find it online. And one of the things that they had a finding on was they had absolutely no procedures in place for infection control, none.
oh,
So could you imagine if that place had stayed open, if it was still open in the midst of COVID-19? I'm not kidding when I said we all would have been dead.
Yeah, you all
The
would've-
place, yep, the place was a nightmare.
I agree.
wow. That's
That's
a con. I mean,
Did you say that you do you have any connections to any of the other people that were there?
I'm
right.
one, I do.
Yeah. They doing
So
okay?
no, actually, she was in the hospital when the place shut down, and just like me, they failed to get her possessions to her, and she's now in another skilled nursing facility that is also really horrible. And turns out that her possessions must have been stolen from the skilled nursing facility, because she lost her laptop, her checkbook, her wallet, all those things that she said was in a cabinet that she thought she was the only one that had the key to it. And all that was stolen. And they sent me with the, when I left, they promised me that all my things were going to follow me. And I got here to the adult family home with the clothes I had on my back, and by chance I happened to have the bag that had the dirty clothes in it that I was wearing the day before. That's all I had. They didn't, and I have been fighting for over 8 weeks now to get my possessions, and nobody will help me. Not the state, not the ombudsman, not no one. Everyone's promised they'll help, and nobody is. So it's just, it's unending. I mean, it's just, this nightmare is absolutely unending.
So you
And
not
I
only
fear
lost
so.
everything once, you lost everything twice. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, that's terrible. Okay. So this point, I'd like to. We got to the terrible part, right? Amy's story is. Amy's story is hard, but Amy is kicking ass. I'm just telling you, she's doing really good. And Lisa, you can hear how determined that she is in her voice. She's done so much to fight and fight and fight, and she keeps fighting for herself and everybody else. And Alan's empathy is like over the moon. This guy was a few hours from dying, and he's like, "Oh, I have it good." No, you should not have to be that sick before you can get health care. So we can have a humane health care, but the sad reality is we have to do it. We have to fight for it. We have to come together, and we have to do it, because the insurance companies, the drug companies, all the companies, their incentive is to keep it the way it is, make it even worse so they can make more money. And the nurses and doctors and people that work in the hospitals and stuff, they're there to help us, to care for us, but they have it terrible too, with all the lack of PPE and all of that stuff, just so we can have somebody can make a few more dollars. Okay, you're gonna get me going. I'm gonna get me going. What I'm trying to say is we have to do this. Our political system is geared to help the people who are making the money. Our economic system is geared so they can make more money, and they can put up a wall between like, oh yeah, we're doing good things for people, and oh well, we got to make more money. So we have to do it. We, you, me, all of us on the call, all of us in the country, we're the ones that have to do it. And I thought that there was going to be a peaceful way to do it. The easiest, the most peaceful way was going to be to elect somebody like Bernie Sanders. But that's not going to happen now. And but it was never about Bernie Sanders. It was about the policies. It was about us. It was about bringing people together to do this. And so I want to appeal to you to come to the realization that Amy and Alan and Lisa are fighting, and they're winning. They're still here, and we can fight and win too. And we just all come together. So I want you to join the fight at mariannaforthepeople.com for my campaign. You can, we're doing everything remote. So if you're in Kansas, you can help me. We're doing all this stuff online. If you got $2 to vote, if you don't, great. Nobody has any damn money. I get it. I'm not going to push that. But you can also go to the wholewashington.org. So Whole Washington is a state program that can be set up to cover everyone in Washington state. Everyone who lives here can be covered by a comprehensive healthcare system that pays for their healthcare in a not-for-profit way. No more Medicaid. Okay, eventually no more Medicaid, but you can choose to be on the Whole Washington Health Trust instead of Medicaid. It will cover everything, except for nursing homes. Lisa, I'm sorry, that's a whole corrupt system all on its own. I'm sorry, that's gross, but it would be in-home care, which you could have benefited for when you still had your home.
I sure could have.
That's right. Medical, dental, vision, hospital, prescriptions, ambulance service, all would be covered in one thing. And the people of Washington would save annually, every year, $9 billion. That's a massive amount of money that can be invested in another way, right? We could have more money in our pockets. The state and local governments wouldn't have to pay as much for their employees' benefits. So that money could be saved and kept in the local coffers, and at the state level, that money could be used to bump up our public health system. Because obviously we're learning with COVID that our public health system needs some help. It needs to be bumped up. They're doing some good stuff, but boy, if they had some tests to give us, we sure could have flattened that curve faster. Anyway, wholewashington.org. You can look on there and put your numbers in and find out what you would pay, how much you would save, because 98% of people in Washington would save money. And then, we still have the federal bill, that Medicare for all. That didn't go away when Bernie suspended his campaign. Pramila Jayapal from Seattle is the sponsor of the House version, and Bernie's the sponsor of the Senate version. We can still fight for that. But at this point, it looks like the only way we're going to get that is to do it state by state. So I say we all put all of our energy into Whole Washington. It can happen. And when I'm elected to the state legislature, I will do everything that I can to move Whole Washington through that building, because the people of Washington deserve it. So Whole Washington has a few action items right now. They're doing, if you go onto their website, you can find out they're doing twice a week kind of meetings on Zoom like this to strategize and set people out to do, like calling the governor and doing different actions. So go to their website or their Facebook page at Whole Washington on Facebook, and you can connect and do things that don't take long. I mean, we're all at home right now. Not everybody, not me, not Amy, but people are at home that, you don't have as much to do as you once did. Go and fight for something that is right. you have the time, you can do it now. So please go on wholewashington.org or mariannaforthepeople.com, sign up to be a volunteer. We would really appreciate it. Does anybody have any closing remarks?
Well, I might.
Thank you for what you're doing, Marianna.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I might relate one quick story. When my wife was she was down in Australia in a situation of sort of a professional exchange. She's a librarian, and she went down there and worked for a month down there in Australia as a librarian, and she caught a bout of dengue fever, which is a not very pleasant thing to have. But she went to the doctor and saw the doctor, got tested and got shots and immunizations and got a course of drugs to take. And they were apologizing because she's an American, she had to pay full price, and they were really sorry that she had to pay the whole thing. And it came to $35 Australian for the whole schmear.
Wow.
And that was at the time in American money was about $20. And her copay was 10 times that. So it can be done in this country as well as other countries.
No, how did we get convinced? I mean, that's like a whole kind of another story, right? How did we get convinced that we didn't need that, or that, that wasn't what we should do? We've had a lot of things socially that we've been convinced of over the years, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. Like
the whole thing. It used to be.
I still think it's crazy that we carry bottles of water around.
Yeah.
Plastic bottles made by the petroleum industry, right? That will never go off the earth. Every piece of plastic that's ever been made is still here, right, on the planet. And so we've been convinced that we need to carry these bottles instead of drinking out of the hose like when I was a kid. So it's okay for them to pollute our water so we can't drink it out of the faucet, right?
And
so then they can profit off us more, so by convincing us to buy these $2 bottles of water,
yeah,
or more, and we just keep getting convinced. How does that happen?
Well, I'll tell you
What was that? Was that Amy?
Yeah, I wanted to add something. So
yes, please.
Thinking about this, so there is a treatment for MS that is working for a lot of people. And what it does is it like reboots your immune system, but it's pretty intense. It's like you have to go through chemo for several weeks, and then there's a stem cell transplant. But it's in the United States, it's $150,000.
Hi.
Insurances won't. No insurance company will cover it. And if you think about why, is because it's a one-time treatment, and then people don't need MS meds anymore.
Right.
They get it and then it's done. Mm-hmm. So insurance companies aren't covering it, because then you still have to, these infusions cost, especially some of the other ones are even higher. All this money that's getting paid every 6 months are people who take other kinds of medications. But if you go to Mexico, you can get it for $50,000, which is still outrageous. But there's thousands of people going to Mexico every day to get this done. And because it's life-changing if you can get it. But somebody like me, I don't have $50,000, and you have to spend a month in Mexico. I can't do that. But I can't get it here because no insurance company will do it. And I don't have $150,000, and that's never going to happen. So
it's like Alan's hospital bill, right?
I'm just trapped still doing these infusions every 6 months when, this is something that's working for people, and they're not on any meds, and they're geting better. So
oh my gosh,
to kind of add that in.
Yeah, that's important. So that they don't want to, actually take care of your health care. They just want to continue you on the, death care that we have.
Well, it didn't used to be that way.
You got to think about it as the insurance company and the pharmaceutical company, right? They totally work together, right? They totally benefit each other, because the insurance company, if they paid that $150,000 and then never had to pay for anything for you for the rest of the time you had them, right? They might consider that, but they're probably in cahoots somehow with the pharmaceutical company.
So they get you just well enough that you can function and be okay, so you keep doing it,
Yeah.
but not enough to totally make you better. So then you don't ever have to pay for meds again.
It's a twap. It's a twap.
No profit in being well, I guess. Interesting.
Well, it's been interesting.
It's a stem cell based, like a genetic therapy.
So they take, what's going on with my picture? So they take they give you chemo, and they wipe out your immune system totally, and pretty intense. But then they take out your stem cells, and then they transplant them back at the end of it, and it reboots your immune system so it's no longer attacking itself. And those are, there's been people who've gone, because it was experimental for a while, and there's people who've gone 10, 15 years and no more symptoms, no more.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Well, that sounds like it would work for all autoimmune diseases. Is that true?
They're doing they're doing some, like with lupus and some of the other ones. And like there's lupus is a big one. I know that they are, and there's a few others. But like I said, the insurance companies aren't covering it. So it's only people who have money who can get it done. I know a woman in Montesano who had it, and she one insurance company covered it. His was through some union, carpenters union, something. And she still had to do all kinds of fundraisers, but she was able to have it, and she's doing wonderful, like best she's done in 15 years. So.
Oh, that's great.
Interesting.
But, for somebody like me who it doesn't even seem possible to have happen, it's pretty,
Yeah. Well, in answer
Going back to
the question, there was a time when all of the healthcare in the country was nonprofit. It wasn't, it wasn't commercially based, but it was nonprofit, and things were cheaper. I remember my mother buying insulin. She had diabetes, and her vials of insulin were $5. And at the time, when my wife and I first got married, and I got a vasectomy, which is probably more than anybody needs to know, but the insurance company wouldn't pay for an elective surgery, but that insurance company realized that a vasectomy operation was cheaper than paying for a childbirth. So, okay, go for it. And now we haven't got that system anymore, thanks to the HMO Act of 1974. It was 1974 with when Kaiser, the very Kaiser, went to President Richard Nixon and said, "You realize how much money we can make not providing services? Just take the premiums," and that's when it started breaking down. And then with the passage of that, the Health Maintenance Organization was a palatable term for what they were doing, and that was part of the selling campaign. There's a whole big book about it, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's a dirty racket. It really is, because it costs people their lives.
Yeah, 60. The newest number I read just today was a Harvard study. 68,000 people a year die due to lack of health care.
Yeah.
Not being able to go to the doctor. That's terrible. I keep saying
the
that
doctor
word.
that I had.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The doctor that I had at the nursing home was about what you would expect for, a place where you got pretty inadequate care. But the one thing that he said that has always stuck with me is the insurance company is really the insurance mafia. And if that's not the truth.
Yeah.
But when I got sick, I was busily involved in getting signatures for I-1600 to get Whole Health Washington's bill on the ballot for single-payer health care. And it was ironic that I was here, getting all these signatures trying to undo the insurance, racket, and they about killed me. But when I was in the hospital in the burn unit for the 3+ weeks I was there, I got 36 signatures from my bed from medical providers on that initiative. But since I have been so involved in the medical systems now, everywhere I go, I talk about single payer healthcare, and up until now, I've talked about Bernie Sanders, and it's so interesting the few people that I've encountered who are absolutely brainwashed that single payer healthcare is the worst way to go. And these are people that are in the medical field. And it's so frustrating because there's nothing that I can say, no angle that I can approach to get through to these people. It's just amazing. But then again, so many doctors and nurses and other folks in the medical field are absolutely for it. So what's happening that we don't have it? It's the corporate elite that's controlling it all.
Well, I mean,
and
let's
doing
be
us all in.
The corporate elite have way too much power. They have bought our politicians, even at the state level. Whole Washington couldn't get a hearing in the state of Washington 2 years now. They wouldn't even do a hearing to talk about it. And it's not a coincidence that the head of the healthcare committee, it takes thousands of dollars from the healthcare insurance companies, right, for her campaigns. That is not a coincidence. Okay. Even at the state level, the health insurance and big pharma own our politicians. And that's why people like me have to get in there. I don't take that money. Sorry, I keep swearing today. Don't know why.
Okay.
I don't take that money. So I am free to say and do what is right for you guys and not have to worry about my political capital, which is what one of our representatives in Grace Harbor told me. They weren't going to spend their political capital on healthcare. Like somebody that you're supposed to be able to trust said that. It was Theringer.
Yeah.
So,
man.
I'm not going to take that money, and that's why I'm doing this, so that I can do what's right for people and not owe anything to anyone but you guys. That so that's why
Thank you.
Your couch change going to my campaign would be great. We're gonna buy signs. We're gonna do it this week. We're buying signs. Great.
I like that red and black sign. I like that.
Thank you. Alan's been helping me. So shall we just wrap this up here? I thank you. You guys all added great information to this. Feel free to share it out to your friends and people on your Facebook or Twitter, or there'll be a YouTube link. I'll send you guys all the links to that stuff. I wish I could hug you. I miss you guys all so much that I can't just hug you. But I will someday. We'll hug each other again, and we'll keep fighting. And don't be afraid to stand up and step out, because it's the only thing that's going to save us.
That's right. Yeah. We're going to have to do this.
We have to do it. Nobody's coming to save us. All right, Oz, if you'd like to wind out, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.